When you think about crisis management, your mind probably jumps straight to firefighting, right? You know, the frantic press conferences, the damage control, the all-nighters. But what if the best strategy wasn't about fighting the fire at all, but about making sure it never, ever starts in the first place? All right, let's get into it. It all boils down to this one simple, powerful idea. This is the absolute core principle of modern crisis management. And you know what? Shifting from that reactive, mindset to a proactive one, well, that's pretty much the biggest game changer an organization can make.
And this comparison just lays it all out so clearly, doesn't it? On one side, you've got reactive firefighting. It's dangerous, it's chaotic, it burns through massive amounts of resources, and the cost and damage can be staggering. But on the other side, proactive fire prevention. We're talking low risk, using minimal resources, and you stay in control with very little cost. When you see it like that, the choice is kind of obvious, right?
Okay, so let's really dig into what's at stake here. What's the real cost when we choose to just react instead of actually prepare? And here is the bottom line, the thing you absolutely have to remember. The money you invest in prevention, things like planning, training, running audits, it is always just a tiny fraction of what you stand to lose in a real crisis. We're talking legal fees, operational downtime, and a battered reputation. Honestly, it's the difference between buying a smoke detector and having to rebuild your entire house. So that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? If we all agree that prevention is way better than the cure, how do we actually do it? How do we find those hidden risks and those little cracks in the foundation before they turn into a full-blown earthquake?
Well, the answer is a really powerful tool called the Vulnerability Audit. So let's break down exactly what that means.
So the official definition sounds a little formal, but basically it's a deep dive risk assessment across your entire organization. Multidisciplinary just means you're looking at everything, from HR to IT to the folks on the front lines. And the key here is it's not just about pointing out what's wrong, it's about figuring out how to make it right.
But hey, let's forget the jargon for a second. The easiest way to think about it is this. A vulnerability audit is like a top-to-bottom fire inspection for your whole company. Simple as that. It's all about finding the sparks before they have a chance to become an inferno.
So what's the goal of this inspection? Well, it's pretty straightforward. First, you identify what could possibly go wrong. Then, you find and fix those weak spots. The ultimate goal is to make your organization not just crisis prepared, but crisis resistant. And that means you have to look everywhere, in every single department. No stone left unturned.
Now, this isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. The great thing about an audit is that you can tailor it to fit your organization's specific size, your budget, and what you really need. So let's take a look at the options.
You've got a few main ways to go about this. You can start small and quick with a crisis document audit, which is basically just a review of the plans you already have. Or you could do an executive session audit where you get the leadership team in a room to really talk through the potential weak spots. For a much deeper dive, the comprehensive audit involves confidential interviews with pretty much everyone. And then there's the blended audit, which is a nice middle ground. As you can see, they all have different time commitments and give you different results.
Okay, feeling a little more in control? You should be, because you don't actually have to wait for some big formal process to get started. You can start looking for vulnerabilities right now, literally today, with something called a walkabout audit. All right, here are some super simple, practical things you can do. First, check the trash. I'm serious, you'd be absolutely shocked at what sensitive info just gets tossed out. Next, take a walk around after hours. Are computers just left logged in, totally exposed? And take a peek at your visitor logs. Is everyone signing in and out? These seem like small things, but they point to much bigger security gaps.
Next up, just listen. What kind of chatter is going on in the hallways that a visitor might overhear? Or how about at that popular lunch spot down the street? Loose lips sink ships, as they say. And finally, ask some basic security questions. How often do things like entrance codes and passwords get changed? Best practice is at least twice a year. Is your team hitting that mark?
So after all this work, whether you do a big formal audit or just that simple walkabout, what's the actual payoff? Why go through the trouble? Let's quickly recap the benefits.
The benefits are just huge. You get to fix problems before they explode. Your team gets faster and way more effective if something does happen. You dramatically slash the potential financial fallout, and all this info you gather, it becomes the rock-solid foundation for your entire crisis communications plan. To put it simply, preparation saves you time, it saves you stress, and it saves you a whole lot of money. So let's end with one last thought experiment, a question that really cuts right to the heart of all of this. If your main office, your primary place of business, just
vanished overnight, would everyone on your team know exactly what to do and where to go tomorrow morning? If the honest answer is, I don't know, well, then you know exactly where you need to start.